In late 1947, 100,000 Jewish residents were trapped inside Jerusalem. That was 1/6 of their entire population in the region, completely surrounded by hostile forces. The threat to those trapped inside was physiological and immediate. The supply lines bringing food and pumping water from the coast were severed. David Ben-Gurion, the leadership figure driving the Zionist movement, looked at the map and made a chilling political calculation. If the starving residents of Jerusalem surrendered, the push to declare an independent Jewish state would collapse. The survival of a massive geopolitical project now hinged entirely on the physical logistics of feeding a single, isolated city. Connecting the coast to that city meant navigating a single, narrow thoroughfare. This road wasn't built for safe passage. It snaked through the steep, unforgiving ravines of the Judean mountains. The terrain enforced a simple, lethal reality. To control the road, you had to control the mountain peaks above it. At first, the strategy relied on armored defense. They welded heavy steel plates to delivery trucks and tried to drive straight through the valleys. The convoys were routinely slaughtered from above. Morale plummeted. Escorting slow-moving trucks through a valley floor had become a mathematical dead end. Survival meant abandoning defense altogether. By April 1948, the strategy had pivoted. Underground Jewish militias, like the Palmach, stopped riding inside the armored convoys. Instead, they climbed the terrain to fight for the surrounding mountain peaks. The fighting centered on choke points like the Castel Peak, a high-ground village that shifted control back and forth in brutal, close-quarters combat. During a massive Arab counterattack, heavy fog rolled onto the peak. In the mist, the top Palestinian military commander, Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini, accidentally walked right into an enemy guard and was killed. Taking the Castel proved the offensive mountain strategy worked. But that victory was immediately neutralized by a massive, immovable obstacle further down the route. The Latrun fortress was a massive stone police station, built by the British and positioned to directly overlook the Valley Highway. When the British left, heavily armed Jordanian forces moved into the empty fortress. They effectively slammed the door to Jerusalem shut. Conventional military doctrine dictated a frontal assault. They tried, repeatedly, and each time they were brutally repelled, leaving dozens dead outside the walls. Latrun proved that outgunned forces cannot win a traditional siege. The only option left was absolute, unorthodox desperation. If they couldn't go through the fortress, they had to go around. Scouts discovered a hidden, unpaved goat path meandering through the rough terrain south of Latrun. They called it the Burma Road. The topography was so steep and treacherous that supply trucks couldn't make the drive. Logistics broke down to sheer muscle, with people carrying sacks of flour and jerry cans of water on foot or in light jeeps over the worst inclines. This makeshift bypass mirrored the broader reality of their military supply chain, a system surviving on scavenging, smuggling, and theft. They had no armored corps, so they stole one. 2 heavy Cromwell tanks were driven right out of a British base by deserting soldiers and handed over to the Israeli forces. To buy armor from France during an international weapons embargo, they acquired a batch of vintage French Hotchkiss tanks. They hid them from port inspectors by burying them in shipping containers filled with rotting onions. First, stolen tanks, then rotting produce, and a secret goat path. This bizarre assembly of resources constituted the actual strategy that kept the city alive. The improvised Burma Road only needed to operate for a few weeks. That narrow window was enough time to drive food into the city and successfully lay a metal pipe to resume the flow of water. Surviving the siege forced a major internal shift. To manage the chaos, the fragmented underground militias were disbanded, absorbed into a single, formalized national military, the IDF. The human toll of opening that single route was staggering. Out of all the casualties suffered during the entire 1948 war, 20% occurred fighting for this one specific stretch of road. You can see the legacy of that fighting in the military cemeteries today. Perfectly identical stones, regardless of rank, integrated directly into the surrounding cycle-of-life foliage. The desperate, improvised mastery of a single mountain road provided the narrow margin the state needed to survive, succeeding where traditional military strength had reached its limit.